would you finish the NBA season?
All right, I bring everyone to the bubble. There would be one location. There would not be going in and out of the bubble. I guess family members could come if everyone were there was enough tests to test everyone and to continually test, because still you're getting stuff from the outside, right? Essentials that you need, food, etc., that are coming into the bubble. So you have to keep testing everyone. Okay, that's fine. Now, here's the issue. This is why I would play at least half a dozen regular season games first before a play-in tournament. And, by the way, I would not reseed all the teams, though I could be convinced to do that. Here's a chance to reseed teams because there's no travel, and there's going to be an asterisk in people's minds, at least anyway, about the season. You might as well experiment with stuff like reseeding 1 through 16. But I wouldn't do that, mainly because I like the way it shapes up in the East and the West. There are things I want answered from this regular season that could be answered in the playoffs as is. Either way, that's not important to me. Here's why I would finish I would play at least half a dozen games of the regular season first. First of all, without travel and without having to worry about ticket holders and stuff like that, you could do half a dozen regular season games plus a playing game within 2 weeks. So it doesn't add all that much time to the bubble and increase the odds that something's going to go wrong. Someone's going to get infected with the virus and it can spread, or things have to get shut down. 2 weeks doesn't sound like the end of the world. Secondly, revenue is way down for the NBA in a way that affects the players, not just the owners. So 10% of their salaries we withheld in the beginning of the season because they're not allowed to exceed 51%, the players are, of total revenue. They're not getting that 10% back already. That's already gone. And there are other things that kind of deflate the amount of money that is owed the players. But local TV revenue deals kick in fully at 70 regular season games. The teams with the fewest games played in the regular season right now, because they're not all exactly the same, is 64 games. That leaves half a dozen games. So get everyone paid as much as possible with the minimal risk. And it dovetails nicely with this issue. I don't care what kind of basketball shape you can practice yourself into. Until the teams are playing games, it's not quite the same.
Agreed.
But I do think about half a dozen games over 2 weeks fairly gives those players a chance to get in shape and gives teams that have established a rhythm and chemistry together time to capture or recapture some of that, like the Lakers, the way LeBron had to, bring along the group until they were peaking and beating teams like Milwaukee and like the Clippers in particular, that they were losing to earlier in the season. So for many reasons, I'd play a half a dozen regular season games. I'd follow that with a play-in tournament and then go right to the playoffs without people coming in and out of the bubble and without reseeding the teams, though that wouldn't be the end of the world to me. At least there'd be the benefit of trying something that people have long wanted to try without much downside.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against the 70-game threshold and having some regular season games if for no other reason than to get that money to the players and to the owners, frankly. However, I would go with 20 teams in and go with the World Cup group stage model. You bring in 20 teams, you break them into 4 groups of 5, you let them all play each other. The 2 teams with the best record advance to the second round of the playoffs. So we kind of combine the end of the regular season with the first round of the playoffs, and you allow the teams who had the best record to be in groups with teams who have the worst record. So there's an opportunity to have all those games matter and all those games be intense. And there's also, I think, the added opportunity that you were starting to suggest there, Max, is that this is something truly different that we can test. And we all accept that the NBA regular season gets a little bit boring at times because there are 82 games and it doesn't matter all the time. So I think working this out right now, having us use this pandemic as an opportunity to try some new things, I think opens opportunities to modify the league going forward, and putting this group stage in at different stages of the season in order to make the season more interesting, more intense, and also I think it makes it more fair. So people who had complaints like Dame Lillard saying that they didn't have a chance it's no sense in coming if you don't have a chance, which I agree with him. This gives them a chance. You go into a group stage, if you can be one of the top 2 teams out of your group of 5 teams, then you move forward to the second round of the playoffs. I really think that's an interesting idea, although I can be swayed by the idea that Max put up about having everyone come so that everyone can get their money.
The 70-game threshold is the one that is critical for kicking in local TV money. I think that's big. And I think looking at this surely from just a player POV right now, First off, I'm trying to do whatever I can do that doesn't affect the CBA moving forward. I don't want to go back and have the CBA that's going to be renegotiated or due to huge revenue loss, and then we have to worry about salaries and the future of the game for salaries. I want things to continue on the trajectory that they're currently on, which is like this right now, okay? It's going up and up and up. So, if that's bringing back 30 teams to kick into 70 games for local TV revenue and other revenue losses that the NBA has, like, to a degree, I understand what Dame has said, and I get that if you can't play for something, but at the same time, like, this is about the business of the sport as well. And you want to make sure that you are able to maintain the trajectory of that. That's important. So if that's 20 games, 30 games, like, I'm going to come back, I'm going to play, I'm going to do what I have to do. I do think that, extending that runway of excitement, if you are doing a play-in model, if that's for 4 teams or how many teams you want to do that within that time period, will create such a level of entertainment and intrigue about a league that you would extend the runway of excitement that would lead to the playoffs. And, as it relates to reseeding the playoffs, guys, you said it, Max. If there's an asterisk to this season, if there's a caveat to this season, it would just be like, let's make the most exciting, entertaining form of basketball that we could think of. I would love to see, the Bucks have the best record in basketball. Let them have the #1 overall seed. If that means that we're gonna have the Lakers and the Clippers that end up meeting in the semifinals before you get, that's where it is. Like, let me have 1 through 16 based upon your record after you finish the regular season games and match up and let's play. And let me see that cross-pollination between East and West and just come out between having a winner in the game of basketball. I would love to see
agree. I agree. Having the most entertaining basketball is the most important thing, which is why I'm confused at why you guys keep throwing out these more regular season games with teams whose seasons are over. Those aren't going to be entertaining. And I understand the financial motivation, but I think that you need to look at the long-term opportunities here. I think it's better off for the league financially if they can prove a World Cup group stage model is something that's intriguing and entertaining.